I request Dakshani Venkatesh, Hemalata and Aruna, the junior to include the Amatai of the song. Please. Honorable Justice N.Anand Venkatesh, the Speaker of the Day. Honorable Justice Vaidyanathan, Honorable Justice Honorable Justice Sundar Mohan, Senior Advocate and Member of Parliament Mr. N.Anand, Senior Advocate and former Public Prosecutor Mr. Shamugavalayam, Senior Advocate Mr. N.L. Raja, all respected seniors and my dear members of the bar. Today, the topic of the day is, can social media impact, influence justice delivery? A few thoughts. When we requested the Honorable Justice N.Anand Venkatesh, he proposed to speak on this topic. Initially, I was a little worried because this is a very controversial topic. So, we know the Lakshman Rekha, where to stop and where to proceed. Equally, press also, media also know they can't conduct the media trial. That is the message to be conveyed. Then Lordship said, I will speak on my own way. Then I said, yes, then Lordship will proceed. Then after that, we wanted to, MBA Law Academy, its chairman, former AG, Mr. Vijay said, okay, we will proceed. He also gave an acceptance. Then former Member of Parliament and the Senior Advocate, Mr. N.Anand said, why don't we have it in the name of Rakesh Law Foundation Trust? And he requested and he gave a letter for that. And we placed it, and our committee unanimously accepted to have this meeting in coordination with Rakesh Law Foundation. So on my own behalf and on behalf of the Madras Bar Association, I welcome the Honorable Justice N.Anand Venkatesh, the Chairman of MBA Law Academy, Mr. Vijay Narayanan, Senior Advocate, and the Rakesh Law Foundation Trustees, Mr. N.Anand, Senior Advocate, Mrs. Ilango and daughter of Mr. Ilango. I request all of you to patiently watch and note all the points, because Lordship with always with the judgments and citations, so we have to follow it very carefully. With this, I request the chairman, MBA Law Academy, to speak few words.
Thank you, Mr. President. Respected Justice Anand Venkatesh, the President and Secretary of the MBA, Honorable Judges, Senior Advocates and friends. This is the second in the series of MBA Academy lectures under the leadership of Mr. N.Anand, the present President of the MBA. The first one was delivered by Justice Ramasubramanian, Judge of the Honorable Judge of the Supreme Court, and I am glad that this function has been arranged in collaboration with the Rakesh Law Foundation, of which Mr. N.Anand, Senior Advocate and Member of Parliament, has founded. Today's topic is a very interesting topic, and we have a very interesting speaker, and I am sure that all of you will enjoy what he has to say. Social media today has come to stay. As we originally knew it, it started with the advent of Facebook sometime in 2004 and 2005. But it could not realize its full potential until data speeds started increasing. And it is only in the last few years, when data speed started increasing, that most applications converged onto the phone, which today everybody carries, including practically 90% of our population in India. The result of this increased data speeds and the explosion that took place in social media was that everybody had access to information almost instantly. In the days when we had to rely only on Facebook, we always had to go back in the evening to our laptop or desktop computer to open it and see what has happened during the day. But today, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and there are about 100 or 200 other social media apps which we don't even know about. They all give us instant access to information. Now this also has resulted in a very disturbing trend. There are 2-3 effects of the explosion of social media which impact us, and in the judiciary it impacts us even more greatly than other fields. One of them, of course, is fake news, which we all know. We are facing that on a day-to-day basis. In fact, now there are a whole band of fact checkers whose only job is to uncover the fake news that is being circulated. But as things stand today, most of us have a tendency to believe that fake news and accept it for what it is. And this is where we have to be careful. The other aspect is the aspect of unfiltered opinions that come to us from various people who think that they are always right and that they have the right to tell us that they are always right. So the impact on all this on the judicial side is something that has to be seriously debated, and it is for this purpose that Justice Anand Venkatesh is going to give us a few of his thoughts. It is especially exciting for us because these thoughts are being given to us from literally the horse's mouth. To what extent does social media impact the justice delivery system? Now, In the justice delivery system, there are various stakeholders, starting with the whole ecosystem that surrounds a court. But the result of everybody's effort eventually fructifies into a judgment. To what extent does social media impact the judgment is something that Justice Anand Venkatesh is going to throw some light on. I'm sure that it's going to be a very interesting talk, and we all look forward to it. With that, I would like to request Justice Anand Venkatesh to start his talk.
I request Mr. N.Anand and Mrs. Please come.
Honorable judges who have assembled here, President of MBA, the Chairman of the Madras Bar Association MBA Law Academy, the office bearers of MBA, the senior advocates, my dear junior advocates, good evening to all. I have to first thank the Madras Bar Association for inviting me and taking the risk of making me speak of an issue which, according to N.Anand, is a very risky proposition. So I have to first thank for taking that risk. I must also thank Mr. N.Anand, and I am very happy that I was able to keep up my promise that I will be the first speaker in the lecture series to be conducted in memory of Rakesh. I'm so delighted to do that. The topic I have chosen is, can social media impact, influence justice delivery? Let me start it with this. I am not going to make this speech sensational, because if I make it sensational and controversial, there will be no difference between me and social media. So I would want to address it from a completely different perspective none of you will even expect. So it will be a completely new perspective, and this perspective is, I am going to address it purely from my perspective as a judge who is holding this constitutional position. How far this social media can impact, influence my justice delivery. I'll have to talk it from my perspective, and I'll tell you how I am looking at it. So, how far I have understood the impact it can create on me is one issue. Is there a mechanism through which I can insulate myself from its impact? That's another question. Will our emotional outbursts or harsh reactions from a judge for a social media posting, is it a solution? What is the level up to which we have to tolerate interference of social media into justice delivery? Broadly, these are certain thoughts with which I have been rummaging for quite some time. I am, as I started saying, I am going to address this issue from a completely different perspective. I believe that without a proper understanding of certain fundamental aspects like the working of our brain, psychology that is involved, how far our ability to think is actually in peril, is it possible to handle social media only with emotions, rhetorics and with the available law? These are certain areas which I am going to touch in my talk. And with this prelude, let me straight away get into the topic that I have chosen. I will be spreading out my talk broadly under 5 heads. First is a quick journey into our brain. You can be rest assured that I will not be conducting neuroscience class here. But my dear friends, without understanding this, you can never understand social media. So the steps which I am taking, which I have put on myself to understand social media, is something which that's why I said I am sharing thoughts here. Because I am actually applying it on myself, I am sharing it with you. So the first head will be a quick journey into our brain. The second will be a peep into cyber psychology. The third will be what is social media designed for. Fourth is there is an urgent need to re-evaluate and understand that to have a peaceful existence in this world, I am convinced that clarity is the only power that has to be possessed by everyone. And the last one is how judges are going to effectively handle social media. So basically, my talk will be spread over with broadly under these 5 heads. So the journey into brain. See, the conventional view in neuroscience is that our eye, ear and other sensory organs, it transmits signals into a portion in the brain called as thalamus. And from there, it goes to the sensory processing area called as neocortex, which is in the front portion of the brain. I will not be giving too many terms, but these are very fundamentals which all of you must understand if you are to understand social media. So whatever signals are collected by thalamus, from there it goes to the sensory processing area called as neocortex, where all these signals are put together into objects and we perceive that object. From the neocortex, the signals are sent to the limbic portion of the brain. And from there, our response radiates out of the rest of the body. This is how broadly whatever comes in and goes out, this is how it has to happen, and this was the conventional view in neuroscience. There is a smaller bundle of neurons that leads directly from thalamus to a part called as amygdala. This is the villain part of our brain. What happens is this is a shorter pathway and the response starts even before they are fully registered by neocortex. That's what I said. Neocortex is the one which assembles, which decides, and then you act. But there is the shortcut method which keeps happening in us, where it moves directly from thalamus to amygdala. Amygdala is a line-sized thing in the brain. And so what happens is that we start our response, and the response happens even before the neocortex registers it. So there will be no conscious cognitive participation from neocortex in all those things. To start with, it may all sound like Greek and Latin, but as I proceed further, you will understand how important it is to understand this before you understand social media. then this amygdala is the one which propels action in a fight or flight response. This is famously called as a fight or flight response. See, during our evolutionary times, survival was our only focus. Survival of the fittest, all of you would have heard. That was our only focus. We are constantly either looking for predators, which is the danger, or we are looking for prey, which is the food. These are the only two things which we were doing at an evolutionary process, and which we and animals together we were doing it. For animals, mostly this is continuing the same way, and we do not find any conscious cognitive participation on the side of animals. But humans, over a period of time, have evolved, and the result is this neocortex about which I said. Neocortex is an evolution in the human brain which we never had to start with. And it generally takes 23 years for its full formation. For the full formation of this neocortex, it takes 23 years for its complete growth. And unfortunately, by then, we claim that we have completed studies. Most of it claim that we have completed studies even before the brain is completely formed. See, that is why we treat the minors, we treat the juveniles, offenders very differently from that of the adults. That's exactly the reason why we do it, because of their lack of using neocortex. You may ask that a person at 55 years is behaving the same way. I don't have an answer for that. But what is important is that this is how the brain formation happens. So, this amygdala is the repository for emotional impressions and memories, and the impulses, emotional triggers we have developed over millions and millions of years shows up in us even now, which is in that amygdala portion. Example, when a violence erupted in this court some time back, which we even today we want to remind ourselves every year. If you had closely watched that video, all of a sudden the so-called learned members of the bar started throwing stones. Please look at that particular video. And this is something which every one of us is capable of doing. This is exactly the one which we have accumulated for millions of years, where it is a protective mechanism to safeguard ourselves from some danger. So this is a response which you will not even think, but the response would have happened by the time you even register it. The other is the hunger gene. It's a gene within us, where even now you will find that persons who can afford, persons who have sufficient money for food, if they give free food, they will go and stand in a line. This is something which some people automatically do. Meaning, if something free is given, they will go and stand in a line. Particularly food. This is something which again is something which we have accumulated for millions of years. So these are all the freak things which happens to us, and if somebody reminds us after a particular point of time, we feel a bit uncomfortable, we think we should not have stood in that line, things like that. So these are exactly the reactions which happens from, these are the memories about which I am talking. So to easily understand what I am saying, amygdala driven actions are bottom up and neocortex driven actions are top bottom. If you understand these two terms, you will understand everything which I am going to say now. So what are these bottom up actions? They are generally involuntary and it is automatic, and it is always in the on position. Sometimes you jump from your bed without a conscious decision. You jump from your bed, you get into certain actions where after the action you will understand that you have performed that action. So that amygdala is something which is always on, and emotion driven things again. Then the habitual routines. So when we start driving a car, initially it is top down. Initially we focus on what the gear pattern is, which gear, how to simultaneously keep pressing the clutch and the accelerator. We do it top bottom. But as we get used to it, it becomes bottom up. It becomes a routine. So these are things which the amygdala basically stores in it. Again, for top down actions, some of the examples will be, it will be a slow reaction. It will be voluntary actions. You take some effort and perform an action. Then self-control, willpower, this intentional choice, all these things can be classified under the top-down actions. So with this I will stop with the brain, because if I continue I know that 50% will sleep. So next is, let us peep into cyber psychology. If without knowing this you may not be able to appreciate what I am. Every step you will have to know the previous step. Only then you will be able to appreciate what I am trying to say. In cyber psychology, see what is the cyber psychology? Cyber psychology is a study of the impact of technology on human behavior. And it involves a scientific investigation of behavior online. This is a new area which started developing only after the 90s. Before 90s there was no such problem. This is one psychology which is developing to a large extent because of our interactions online, because of our time with the screen, etc. The experts say that cyberspace is a distinct space, even though you are accessing it from a familiar environment. We think that when we access it from our home or from our office or sometimes even during the court hearings, we think that we are in a familiar environment. No, the moment they have proved it beyond doubt that the moment you get into cyberspace, it is distinct. You have gone out of the physical space and you have entered into the cyberspace. Okay, how are you making this comment? See, basically, the moment you go online, each one of you please ask yourself, because this is not some theoretical thing which I am saying. Each one of you know what is happening when you go online. So, the moment you go online, your awareness, your emotions, your responses, your behavior, everything is different from what you do in a physical world. How? See, in the real world, in the physical world, we have learned to keep track with time. We have learned to keep track with time, and effectively we know time management in the physical world, right? So I am trying to prove what I said earlier. Online, there is something called as a time distortion effect. So you take the phone, you intend to check a message, you intend to check a particular message, but what happens is sometimes you end up spending hours in that. It keeps on dragging you. You go for checking a message, you get into a WhatsApp, the WhatsApp has somebody has sent some online thing, you get into that connects you into something else, and ultimately by the time you lift your head, in physical world you would have fixed that, you have made a plan that I will spend 5 minutes on this. Same thing when you do in this. Since you are caught in it, since you are entering into a different world altogether, that 5 minutes there may become 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 2 hours. This is, I am sure each one of you, I have that experience. Let me talk for myself. I am sure each one of you must be having such an experience. Time does not work in cyber world unless you completely switch it off. So, our instincts, basically, it's honed to the real world. That's how evolution, right? From the time of evolution, that's what has happened at least till 1990s. We are talking about something which has sort of hit us for the last 30 years. So, it does not help us, whatever skills we have honed in the physical world, it actually does not help us in the cyber world. It does not help us, and our instincts, till now, it has evolved to handle face-to-face interactions, correct? So, I give my speech, I look at faces, I see some nods, I see somebody doing this, I see all sorts of things from here. I am used to this type of an interaction right from the days of evolution, face-to-face interactions. In cyberspace, you interact in a medium with millions of people, with large number of people, and you don't even see them. This is a huge difference with which the brain is yet to come to terms. It is yet to come to terms. The mapping has not happened at all. That is why we are discussing all these things. So, why are we hooked to it? See, it is highly interactive, it is highly engaging, and highly immersive environment is there. You can get immersed into certain things which you like. So, you can get immersed into it. So, it basically compels our instincts. It compels our instincts, and hence we see some of the most worst aspects of the human behavior online. So, when the amygdala is working there, that's why I was saying this. This happens because amygdala is working there. It does not consciously get into a neocortex. That is why you are facing a problem like this. This amygdala, which has collected all these responses for the purpose of handling a physical world, understands it that way in a cyber world, and most of the times it is bottomed out. Most of the time. So, we actually feel freed up, and we are emboldened in the online messages or online transactions, and we tend to lose all our inhibitions. It's like an inebriated man. A man who had a couple of drinks, generally he gets into that free mode, meaning he will not be the same person you saw after those 2 or 3. He will be a completely free, different person. He loses his inhibitions. If you understand that, you will understand that it is the same effect which happens in a cyber world. So, the brain actually cheats us, and it gives an impression that we are anonymous because we are sitting in one room, we have locked everything. The brain tells us that no problem, you are alone, you are anonymous, nobody is looking at you, and we are at a very safe distance. I can abuse somebody, I will not get hit. So brain says you are in a very safe distance, no problem. Again the brain is cheating us, and you have been removed physically. That's a very, very important criteria which makes us behave very differently in a cyber world. An individual who demonstrates common sense, rationality, restraint in real life becomes bold and explicit. Have you not seen in the type of messages which comes to you? Have you not seen the type of messages that are being transacted by persons? People shockingly become inflaming messages, aggressive messages, offensive messages, threatening messages, provocative messages, lascivious messages. They are all sent by a person who will not indulge in such a behavior in the physical world. That's why I am saying cyber world is a different world altogether. A person who may have something inside, may not interact with a girl in the physical world in a particular way. He will show restraint, he will show some sort of decency, he will behave very differently. That's why we are seeing people whom we don't even expect would have sent messages which will shock us. Actually, we will also do such things which will shock us. It's because of this thing, this this laws of rationality, common sense, laws of restraint, everything, we tend to become like this. And beware, if you continue with this extreme behavioral pattern, that's the danger. If you continue with this same behavioral pattern, it can mutate and a person can really start doing all that in the real world, in the physical world. Because the brain maps itself so much, the emotion becomes so strong that it becomes a habit for him. I said that certain routine things we keep doing, the habits are also the same thing. We get angry. Once the anger becomes a habit, then we don't even consciously think about it. We just get angry. Same way. So these things which are repeated by a person, aggression, threatening, provocative, if somebody continues with this, it can mutate and it can happen in the physical world. He will start showing all that in the physical world. Okay, let me go into the third head. The third head is, what is this social media designed for? If you understand the first two, this will be more easier to understand. What is it designed for? Some philanthropist is not running it. We are all aware of it. It is designed to make us addict. Underline it. It is designed to make us addict. See what they have tapped. What is the basis on which they brought this social media? That we have to understand. See what they have tapped is that in our core, as every human being, we are information seeking creatures. The role of dopamine system, the dopamine hit about which we have heard, the role of this dopamine system has been shown to relate directly to information seeking. Every time we get an information, that hit is there. So this is how we started as primates. This is how we all started as primates, and this is exactly what they have tapped in social media. So how the animals are reacting for food and water, we respond to receiving information. It is that equivalent. Somebody, we focus on something, we come to the library to read something, somebody says something, we do this. Or something is happening at a distance, we do this. Meaning, these are all information seeking. We are born that way right from the time of primates. And this is exactly what has been tapped by social media. So, over millions and millions of years, we have increased these cortical connections in the brain to forage for information. That is how we have developed our brain right from the days of evolution till now. It is foraging for information. So we therefore have this innate drive or an innate hunger for information, and that is what is fed by social media. That is exactly what is fed by social media. If you don't understand this basis and keep on emotionally reacting to social media, there is no end to it. So this is exactly the investment of social media. They have understood the brain. They have understood the working of the brain. And this is exactly what they have tapped, and it lures everyone because of the nature of brain which we have formed over millions of years. So that is why one scientist jokingly said that we are ancient brains living in a high-tech world. It captures whatever I said till now. So, as I was saying, see, this information seeking is directly associated with pleasurable feelings, which releases what is called as dopamine. That dopamine hit. See, all the online activities, WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, see, it stimulates and releases loads of dopamine with that continuous expectation, continuous response. See, Trump, who was the president of United States till the last, what happened was he became an addict to Twitter. This was a very interesting study which was made. And most of the messages which he got was abusive messages. Actually, people were abusing him to the maximum. Then the question was, why is it that he was so glued to Twitter? That one good message which he receives. It's like gambling. In a gambling, we keep on losing money, but something is not allowing us to raise from there. Why? Because of that occasional win that happens. That occasional situation where you earn that money. That is that dopamine hit. That is exactly what the social media is capable of doing to us. So, our compulsive and impulsive traits are continuously rigged up, and that is the basis of social media. So, compulsive is one beep, one vibration, one light blinking, whatever serious thing we are doing, we keep doing it. This is compulsion. Compulsively taking the phone and seeing what messages I have received. Compulsively checking the email and seeing what I have received. Compulsively looking at the Facebook and seeing how many likes I have received. This compulsion is something which is directly related to the information seeking of human beings. And some people, what they do is, they get into impulsive moods. It's not as if everybody sends inflaming messages or violent messages, but there are persons who continuously being compelled to see it, react to it, they start reacting in such a manner which is the impulsive mode. So this is exactly the basis for social media, and social media will thrive till human beings live in this world. There is no doubt about it. See, in the other addictions which we see, for instance, drug addiction or continuous watching pornography or alcohol, these addictions basically it degenerates the individual. That individual suffers because of it. But in a cyber addiction, it leads to manipulation and influencing the thought. That's exactly where I am reaching. It does not stop, it does, like the other addiction, it does not just degenerate a person. The more you get into it, every thought process of yours will be capable of being influenced. So that's one important thing which happens and which is very peculiar to cyber addiction. Then the fourth limb of what I wanted to say, I said clarity is the power. Why do I say this? See, most part of the history, we believed that information is power. Correct? Information is power is what we have all been taught, and why was it said that way? Because information was scarce. You don't get information. Persons who have practiced during 80s and 90s also, the revenue standing orders, board standing orders, nobody will be having it. Some government advocate will just give it. And nobody will have access to even revenue standing orders and board standing orders. I'm sure everyone would have. So, at that point of time, I'm just giving you an example so that you can easily understand. At that point of time, information was power. So, whoever had everything, Ajmal Khan had everything, so he had published 3 books out of it. So, that is the power which it gave. Now, information is the power is the one with which we have all progressed in life. And that information itself is now becoming a villain for us. This is a major change which is happening after the social media has come. Next, we talk about democracy. What is democracy? We believe that the voter is the one who knows the best, and he is the one who will decide who will form the government. Correct? But for most part, the voter goes more on feelings, not on rational. If it is rationality which decides the voter, I think many must be disqualified. But it's not rationality, it is the feeling with which one goes. It's the feeling about a particular party, a particular leader, how they perform, etc. It's that feeling with which you go. So, if that feeling can be manipulated, by a party or a leader through social media, then again your old usage of democracy, people are the ones who elect, becomes a joke. Then let's go into the next thing. In economics, customer is the king. Customer is the king in economics. He again goes by feeling. He does not rationally go and buy. If that can be manipulated, which is happening on a daily basis. Then ethics. In ethics, we say we follow our heart and do that what makes you feel good, is what we have all been said. And generally this gets strengthened with religion, with community, with caste. Identity politics actually thrives on this. Identity politics exactly thrives on this, and if they are able to manipulate you based on your ethical thinking, based on religion, community, caste, you are manipulated. Then it's not your thought, it is somebody else's. Then our so-called free will. We all talk about free will. We think that I decide what I will do. I will think what I want to. All that. We strongly believe if that is manipulated. What will happen is social media will become, you will start thinking somebody else's thought. That's what will happen. Where your free will go for a 6. That is gone. Then, if you take all this into consideration, are we doomed? Is this the end of the world? Isn't there any solace for this? Isn't there any remedy for this? That's why I said in the 4th limb that the power of clarity is what is required for the present. See, it's a trait which will help a person in this situation. Whether it is information, if you are clear, if it is not bottom up, it is top bottom. Any information you get, it gets processed in a neocortex. You decide whether I want the information or I don't want the information. Election, you don't go by what the others are saying. You yourself assess the situation. You select the party, you select the government. And same way your customer, you decide what you have to buy, how much I have to spend. And same is with ethics. So that's why I said whatever was considered by this world to be a power is all getting denuded because of social media. Therefore, we are living in an era where clarity is power, which means, going back to what I said, as much as possible, it must be, every action, every thought of us must be a top-down thing from the neocortex and not the one which are influenced by the amygdala. Don't get confused with the names, but if you are understanding what I am saying, it will become more easier to catch exactly the issue I am trying to project here. And getting into the last limb of my talk, that's judges handling social media. See, there was a Chief Justice here. So some senior advocates went to the Chief Justice and they were very concerned about whom to elevate as a judge. So there was some discussion which was going on with the Chief Justice. So the Chief Justice asked them, should I also appoint a psychiatrist? Pat came the reply from the senior advocate, is it before or after elevation? I strongly feel that it should definitely be after elevation. See, I wrote an article during the pandemic period which I had given the title, Their Lordships Are Also Humans. See, I very strongly feel that judges must undergo periodical counseling. since our mind is continuously bothered and we have bloated ego, we have arrogance, we have belief bias, we have wrong notions, we have preconceived ideas, we have conditioning. Who does not have it here? So, the reason why I am saying this is, when it comes to belief bias, or when it comes to conditioning, when it comes to preconceived notion, and I take up a case which is not in line with what I believe, how do we manage it? Is the question. If I say that it is all influenced by it, from tomorrow onwards, no case can be posted before any judge. How do we manage it? We basically push off that preconceived notion or whatever it is, as much as possible, try to neutrally look at the issue and decide it. What does it require? It requires a top-down action. If it is a bottom-up action, then the answer will be the first thing, dismissed, and then you start reasoning it up. So, if a case involves a belief bias, if a case involves a preconceived notion, if I am conditioned that I saw blood, therefore this person alone would have committed the murder, then that's the end of it. So, there what do we do? Even though as an individual we all have this load in our brain, we keep on consciously attending to it. Correct? The same way we have to attend to social media also. Now, this whatever I said, basically, it can influence a decision-making process in a sensitive case. Not in all cases. It can happen in a very sensitive case or a very vital issue of public importance. It can happen. It can really influence you so much that you lose that sense of neutrality, and then you are driven by something which you already conceived, which you already believed, etc. So, like this, the added challenge which has come to judges is social media. So, can it be controlled? The answer must be definitely a no. It cannot be controlled because it involves millions of people who are trolling, and they are coming up with variety of reactions, and we don't have control over any of those persons. So, handling social media, the first lesson to be learnt by a judge, I'm saying this to myself, is the way you deal with your own bias, with your own preconceived notions, with your own conditioning of mind. How do you handle it? Same way handle social media also. Because at the end of the day, what is social media doing? It is influencing your decision making process. If I am used to not getting influenced by these things, and if I am strong in that, I should be strong in handling social media also, is what I feel. Then, so as I said, why does it happen? It happens because most of the time we are expected to act top down, moment to moment, momentum, our irritations, the certain things which happens in the court which actually sort of aggravates our anger, our notions, all that keeps on coming. How far you are influenced by it is the question. If you are used to continuously controlling, continuously putting that block, and where you say that these things are not going to come and influence me, and you use it as a tool for rendering proper justice, the same tool has to be applied even while you are managing social media. So I think that the judges must basically get insulated from being influenced by social media. We must get matured, enough to handle social media. Social media is definitely a platform for freedom for expression. Let us not shun it. We cannot basically just put it into the dustbin. Social media actually provides and helps us in a long way. It all depends on how you are approaching it. If you get into its control, then you cannot blame others. So social media is surely a tool for the platform for freedom of expression when it goes overboard. When it goes overboard, we must necessarily react to such social media postings, and the test according to me is it must directly affect administration of justice. I would want to raise the bar to that level and not to every other messages. See, we have heard some statements made like all judges are scoundrels and all advocates are asses. In United States, they did not take it very seriously at all. There are expressions which are used by persons, and if hundreds and thousands of persons are going to use are going to send such messages, and if you are going to react for everything, I am sure that judges will get mad, and definitely a psychiatrist will be required. So, the level up to which I would want to place the bar is it must directly affect administration of justice, and those cases according to me will be far and few, and you must be mature enough to identify such cases. Continuously reacting to social media. See, basically as judges we don't have a platform for reacting. The only thing which we can do is we can talk through our orders. So the only way which we may be reacting on some postings in a social media is contempt jurisdiction. That's the only jurisdiction we exercise. But how many contempt petitions are we going to entertain on this? How much of time is going to be spent on dealing with contempt jurisdictions? We are dealing with millions of people whom we are not even able to see, and therefore the continuous reactions to the social media are trying to satisfy a view taken by some judge through some other source. It's going to seriously affect justice delivery system. Our continuous reactions, emotional reactions, are actually going to affect justice delivery system is my personal view. So let the judges act top down. Let them have the clarity about which I said, and let them not get overwhelmed with social media. If we follow this consciously and with maturity, there is something called as a neuroplasticity, about which there is a lot of study which has come. Meaning, we exercise and change our whole body. Same way, it's possible to change our thought process itself. In this very same way, continuously keep attending to certain things, the brain maps itself in such a way, it's technically called as a neuroplasticity. So, if we are able to develop this attitude of just disregarding, not taking things seriously, unless it comes to that level, I think we will be spending a lot of productive time in justice delivery system, and overreaction to social media will actually affect justice delivery system. Thank you so much.
This.
Respected President, Honorable Justice N.Anand Venkatesh, Mr. N.Anand, Chairman of MBA Law Academy, Honorable Justice N.Anand, Honorable Justice Subramanian, Honorable Justice Kuru, Honorable Justice Bharat Chakravarti, respected seniors and my dear friends. At the outset, I thank Justice N.Anand Venkatesh for this wonderful lecture. It was thought-provoking indeed. It was not sensational, but it was thought-provoking. That is the only thing I can say. Thank you. I also thank Senior Advocate Mr. N.R. Ilango and his family members from Rakesh Law Foundation who partnered with MBA today for this wonderful session. Thank you, one and all.